Okay, now for this demonstration we're going to go ahead and use our straight edge, and I really strongly recommend the 18-inch. You'll see why as we go through this. I want you to have your divider, and let's go ahead and do something else too. The divider is extremely sharp on the tips, so if you have a file or a stone or something, let's go ahead and file those down so that we don't damage our photographs and even the paper, especially if you don't have a steady hand. You just can't see the depth of field, a couple of those things. It's easy to go ahead and put gouges in your pictures. So then I want to encourage you to learn this because it's going to be a wonderful introduction for some of you who want to be able to draw freehand, to start seeing angles and shapes and how they form the proportions that some of you struggle with. Now, additionally, I'd like you to have your small picture. One that's about 6 inches high. I think that's really good. Now, we could do a lot of measuring, but one of the things that's nice about this is we don't have to do a lot of calculations and measurements. And this just plays off of a couple bearing points and a couple bearing lines that are going to establish the tilt, which is a very important thing. I want to make sure that my source here is going to be in exactly the same orientation as my paper, and that means that it's completely parallel instead of being skewed like this. If it's skewed at all and I can't count on this as my reference, and every angle that I'm going to use is a little different than what I would have in my drawing, then I'm pretty much defeated already. Nothing's going to really calculate out. But if I'm very, very careful and I keep this in completely parallel, and I'm going to stress that as I go through this whole thing over and over again, just to make sure that you stop and think about it. So let's go ahead and decide where we're going to establish a horizontal bearing line. I want to do something on here that's significant in that it is verifying the tilt of the head, if there is any, and I think the eyes would be a good place to start. Let's go ahead and pick the inside corner next to the white of the eye, where the eyelids come together in that corner. She has good little points there, and let's go ahead and pick that. We'll take the ruler from one point on one eye to the point on the other eye, and I'm going to make my lines a little darker on this demonstration because I want you to be able to see. But I want you to realize when you're doing it, you don't have to worry about a camera capturing these light little lines and worrying about whether they're going to hold and you're going to be able to see it. Working on your own, I definitely want you to do it with your 4H. Have that light touch. If you remember back to the sphere exercise where we put that lid down or whatever template you're using and hold it firmly and then drag your pencil around so that you're not pushing it into the paper and having that point gouge it or make unnecessary score marks. I want you to just gently drag it, and we're going to want to remove many of these lines later. So we just are looking for a construction to our picture, and these are in most cases not going to be the part we're going to probably keep. So with that mentality, I want to very lightly put on my strokes, just dark enough for you to see them, not so dark that it dictates the value later or restricts your being able to remove it from the paper. So now let me go ahead and make this line across here. Remember, I'm going to do it a little darker for you so that you can see it. I hope you can see that. Okay, and now that's our bearing line, and we're going to go ahead and pick out a middle. Let's go ahead and do right in the very, well, let's try to do right in the very center. Let's pick out the middle of her bridge of her nose. And there's other places you could put this that wouldn't be so obvious and not be able to be removed possibly in your own picture. And that's one reason why I wanted to specify what I just did, because I'm making it darker only so that you can see what I'm doing. So let's go ahead and we're going to make one right up through. It looks like right up through the septum of the nose, right through the bridge of her nose, right through the little cupid's bow, and we're going to intersect the chin. We just want something that we can really count on that sets the tone for the layout of our entire picture. Now we're going to go ahead and pick out that a spot a little higher than center on this paper, and I'm just going to put my finger there. We could measure it, but I think this will be fine. We're going to make that dot. And now we're going to come over here, and we're going to play off of this, making sure this is exactly the same angle on the paper as it was on my picture. And to do that, I not only want to run my ruler exactly on that line, but I want to be able to have exactly the same angle here. So I want to make sure that this is completely parallel. The photograph and the paper is completely parallel with each other. I'm going to be able to count on that to build all my angles and other points. So now we're going to go ahead and decide what our vertical axis is. Our bearing line for vertical is going to be established by putting this on that line I just made, and then running this along the bottom until it comes to this dot in the middle. I want to be able to go parallel with the line, be right on it, down through the center of my source, and I want to be able to have this completely parallel at the bottom so that I can make sure that I am capturing that slight tilt of the head that I was talking about. Whether it's there or not, we still want this to be completely true. Okay. All right. Now, here's the third major element. We want to know how big to make our picture. I think that's really important to decide. We only have a limited amount of space on our paper here, and we don't want to just start drawing. And for me, many times I would end up with a completely different size than I had anticipated. And so I want to be able to have some way of dictating where I'm going to have this placed and the size and all those things. And you can easily do it by taking a measurement. Like, we're going to go from here down to the chin, and we'll say, well, okay, let's make it a half again bigger, 50% enlargement. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick out half again as much. Let's go ahead. This will be the only measurement we'll have to take, I think. Let's go ahead and just measure it, just to kind of see if we were close. I'm going to take it from that bearing line, and this is an inch ruler. I'm going to take it from that bearing point, and down here it's about 2 inches. So let's make it 3 inches on this other one, and this is going to dictate the ratio of enlargement or reduction. If you decided to do it that way, it could be that too. But this is going to dictate how big this is going to be in comparison to our source. Let's put a little circle around each one so that we can identify them. Now we're going to go ahead and start our process lining things up. So let's find out, where does that line intersect that corner of the eye? We can establish that by putting our ruler on the bearing point at the bottom, on that chin, and now running that up to the point we want to capture, right at the corner of the eye. Now again, you want to be very careful, and we'll bring this over here and make sure that we're still on everything here, and it is. And now this is the corner of that eye. All right. Now let's find the other one. I'm lining up that bottom pivot point there with my one on my picture. And where do I want to go? I want to intersect right there. That's the edge of my eye. Okay? Okay. Now, let's go ahead and find out. If you look at this, you'll realize that this corner of the eye, the corner where the tear duct is and everything else, isn't where the line goes through. Let's decide where the line actually goes through and intersects the horizontal line. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll use our main bearing point we're working off of right now. Okay, so that's where that line intersects. Let's go ahead and find the other one. We'll gradually gain more and more and more additional reference points. I won't call them the bearing points yet, even though if we do this right, we should be able to count on anything we put on here from then on. Here's where that eyelid intersects that line. Okay? Right there. Right there and right there. All right, now let's see what we want to pick. Let's see where the edge of the ear. And let's go ahead, and even though this is at an angle, we can come up with a very, very good reference point here, because we're going to look where the edge of the ear, the outer edge of the ear, intersects that line again. Okay, so here's where the ear intersects. Okay. And while we're there, we might as well get some of these other points on the ear. Let's go ahead and decide where this part intersects. This one of the inner parts of the ear. Now, the way I'm going to tell, naturally I have nothing up here, but that bearing point is all important. If I have my straight edge on that in the picture, then all I have to do is run it out to where I want it to intersect here, and it's automatically going to show, because we have this line established, where it is on our drawing, or will be on our drawing. Okay, let's go ahead and get the side of the face while we're there. Where does this intersect the side of the face? Get as many tick marks on here as I can, because soon we'll be able to go ahead and start utilizing our divider, which needs some comparative measurements. And again, even though you may not want to draw your picture out totally using this method, if you decide to do something else, maybe some of you might want to use a projector or do some tracing for right now, or whatever it has to be, transfer with graphite paper, use a grid, you'll still find that this, if you can learn this method, it is going to be very, very useful, because people are often off on one subtle thing. So I'm going to go ahead and try to kind of identify what some of these things are. And now the way that I'm going to run a line through here so I'll know what it represents. But the way I would do it, especially being at a little bit of an angle, is I want to, again, keep this in the same orientation. I never want to have this picture getting like this or like that. Always want to have it in the same orientation. That means parallel on all sides to the paper. And so I'm going to run this up here until I see that I can kind of tell the angle. As I'm sighting right down there, I can mimic that pretty well. And it gets me to start paying attention to angles. This is one of the things that makes us good at freehand drawing or whatever, is we just have a tendency to see the things that are important, a natural tendency to see, and some people just don't see those things naturally. So it's nice to start becoming aware of some of the things that go into making a very successful and a proportional picture. So I'll just get some of these things in here, because it will kind of help to identify what we're working with. So I can turn this around. Let's go ahead and make sure we know that these little ticks are for the eyes here. Let's keep this parallel. I can see the angle of that last part as it comes up to that little corner point, and I can see to duplicate that pretty good. Don't have to draw the whole eye right now, but I still want to kind of set the tone. Where's it going? I'll turn it around and get the other angle coming off from that corner, the upper eyelid, and duplicate that angle. Okay. All right, now this one is a little tricky. We don't know where the corner of the eye is yet. We'll measure that. It'll come out exactly right. But I'm going to make this thing parallel with the edges again, and look at my angle and duplicate that. And let it run wild, down below this bearing horizontal line. Let's go ahead and catch our other ones here. Keeping it parallel. I can catch the attitude of this, just a little short little line. but I can get enough on there to make me aware of what I actually was trying, that line represented, or that dot represented, that point. Now see, I want you to, again, really become aware of these angles and how shapes fit together and all those things visually. I'm very unusual that way, in that I see angles pretty naturally. And so that makes it possible for me to, again, draw freehand probably better than some. But I still maintain that I can teach you to start becoming aware of certain things. And I've seen it happen many times. And you will start looking for those opportunities that you've just found to, because you know how important they are and how effective they are. I'm going to go to where the ear meets the head at the side of the face. As long as I keep this on the bearing point and put it on the bearing point on the picture, and it's still on what I want to capture, and it's parallel with the side of the paper. Paper and the photograph are parallel. I know that where it intersects is right there. Okay. So now let's go ahead and I could go over to the other ones, but why not? Let's go ahead and see if we can kind of come up with this angle. And you know what we can do? We can go ahead now and do one more thing that's good with this straight edge. We can actually now, because we have this mark here for the side of the face, now we can play off of that, and the side of the face, ironically, is quite straight. We're going to deal with the fact that it isn't really totally straight, but our straight edge is going to help us with that later as well. So I want to be able to get the general angle, and it's quite straight from here down, quite a ways. I don't know where this point is yet, so I may run a little wild, and we'll just have to count on taking some of it off later. But I'm going to put it on that point, and I'm not worrying about my bearing point anymore. This is becoming a bearing point, and I'm going to use this to dictate where the side of the face is. So I still want to make sure that this is very parallel, the photograph and the paper are parallel, and that I'm holding this on the appropriate place that I want to capture. And I'm going to put it over there on that reference point, and I'm going to draw the side. I think that's so cool. This doesn't look like much yet, but it's going to be fun. I'm always excited because I think it's so much fun to start seeing a person come out of these very, very basic lines and dots. So let's go ahead and find out where this side of the face is quite straight as well. It's got quite a straight edge. And again, we'll fine tune that later. Okay. And now we're going to go and make the side of the face over here. Let's go ahead and develop a little more of the ear. Let's get over here on the side. All we need to know, even though this is quite an angle, all we need to know is where that point is, where that outer edge of that right ear intersects that line. And how do we know we have it in the right place? We're going to take it from this bearing point through what we want to capture, through this bearing point, and it'll tell us exactly where we need to be out there. How far out on that line, and where the edge of the ear is. Okay, let's go ahead and see how close that little inner edge, let's go ahead and see about that. Now, if you don't keep this parallel, see what happens. It can be off a little bit at here, but out here, it's actually changing a lot. And it multiplies in how much it does move. So we want to be very careful that we keep this as parallel to the edge as possible. Make sure it's still on what we want to capture here. And here is the inner edge of the ear. We can go ahead and put this up here and try and capture that angle a little bit. Just so again we know exactly what we're dealing with. And it's always nice to be able to start getting a feel for something anyway. All right, now let's go ahead and take a couple measurements. Let's find out how tall and how long that ear is. I'm going to go from this outer edge of the ear down to where the lobe of the ear is. We better get over here because there's not enough room. I can go outside just as well as I can go on the inside. As long as I can keep this thing parallel, it doesn't make any difference. Okay, so this is where the ear joins the face. And it comes out here like this. Okay, let's go ahead and do this one. So for some of you at home that feel like you can't draw and you have no way of getting a picture started without having it just look scary, this is a wonderful thing. I'm going to go from this outside edge to that where the lobe seems to attach to the face. It isn't reattaching right there, but that's the last place we see it as it goes around behind the cheek. What a cute baby. Okay, so this is where it joins the face. It comes out a little bit away from that. And this bows out a little from that. And now we could do the same thing on the ear. Even though this has some curve to it, and we'll develop that later, we still have something that's fairly angular here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's put the ruler out there, the straight edge, not right to the face because we came out away from the face just a little bit with this this little part for the lobe. We don't see the whole lobe here. But yeah. All right. Let's take this one out a little bit. We don't need it that long. All right, now let's go ahead and use that far left point we have now. I'm sure we can count on. And let's decide where our mouth and nose and all those things are. Let's go ahead and pick out a few points that are going to start giving us a vertical line up here. Let's get to the bottom of the septum. Let's just do that one here. We're going to line it up with this outer mark for the ear, and we're going to go to the best I can, the bottom of the septum. So now we want to take that out to that outer edge of the ear on my drawing and make sure this is parallel. We'll have to look back over there and see how we need to adjust it. And here's the bottom of the nose. Let's go ahead and identify that. It's nice to kind of know what the part is, and it starts giving a little bit of a personality to this baby already, even though we don't have many of the facial features going. It's still nice to kind of get a direction in our minds for the form of some things. Maybe it's just me. You can do whatever you'd like to do, but I suggest you make it look as human as quickly as possible. So now we know that's the little point of the nose. Let's go out to here again to that mark on the ear. And we'll find out where it intersects the line. That's what we really need to do. We need to intersect that vertical line just like we did on the horizontal one. So we know exactly where that lip is touching that. Okay. Now we could actually do this. Because we have that mark, if this is parallel on the outside, we can make sure that we have the angle of the mouth by showing where it just coincidentally her mouth works out fine. On each picture you'll have to search for your own little identifying character marks here, see how things line up and make a decision based on each individual. But on this one, If she has a little tilt to her head, you know, we'll be able to pick it up, even if it's subtle. And it is. It's a little farther from here to the horizontal line here than it is here. And so we know that her mouth is tilted just a little bit. So let's get that access line there. And now let's find out where the corner of that mouth is on that line. Let's go ahead and use this line, this one in between her eyes, as our bearing point so that we can intersect that horizontal line. That would be much better. That works out. That's very easy that way. Okay, this is where it intersects. So that's the inside of the mouth. Let's go ahead and identify that by looking, making sure this is on the same orientation and looking at the angle that's built off of that mark and try to duplicate that direction. Just so we start getting, again, a little more form, a little more form. Now we'll do the other side, the inside corner of the mouth. And now we know that that is the inside. Let's go ahead and make a mark that way too. Oh, that one comes down a little bit, like so. The tongue is... Okay. You see this angle and shadow here? It depends on your likes and dislikes as to whether you want to mark that out, but I think it might be evident enough that I could take advantage of it. Let's go ahead and go this way. It's similar enough to our angle that I should be able to put it up to that bearing point between the eyes. And this is a line that will be a lot longer than it needs to be. Let's go ahead and do this little smile line over here. Let's try that one. Oh, that one's pretty close too. Can you see how straight at least part of that is? At least enough that we can get a pretty good idea. It angles up pretty well by matching up with this bearing point in between the eyes again. Where that line is intersecting, that our bearing horizontal line is intersecting the eyelid there. I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of that as well and catch the edge of a little contour down below. So see, we got this one over there, and now we're catching that opposing one. Look how the shadow is on the opposite side. These are things that I want you to start noticing too. Look at your lighting source and how it is shading your face. And all of the parts that are round on that shaded side are going to be consistent. If you try to contradict that and you end up by starting to make this light and this dark over here, you're going to start creating a negative. And that just presents all kinds of other problems. All right, let's go ahead. I think I'd like to do this. Let's go ahead and get our basic angle on our chin. And let me tone this down a little bit so I don't have to worry about that being too dark. I hope you can still see it. But I'm going to go ahead and go through there, mimicking that angle, I hope. See, now I'm getting back to how I'm holding my pencil is back to what we want, because when I start actually doing more of a drawing and using my pencil in the way I've taught you, you're going to have more flow and grace. The other way, we're just trying to get a schematic drawing here and show all these important little points. So that we can go ahead and connect the dots and add the drawing we want beyond that. Now let's go ahead and find out where this little point is. I think that would be good because we can kind of indicate the garment there a little bit. So let's go off the bearing point in between the eyes again, over to where the garment meets the chin, intersects the chin line there. And now let's line this up. with the bearing line on the picture, and that is where the garment is. So now let's try to get an idea about this. Some of this could change later, but let's go ahead and do this. Oh, that's pretty straight. Let's go ahead and take advantage of this then. We'll put this on here, and let's run this over to the side, creating these points that I can count on. So the more careful I am with even some of these things that aren't necessarily that important, it gives me another reference point. Wonderful. It's getting pretty exciting here. So now this is a little more curved. Let's go ahead and do this line. Look how this line coming up, making that little smile on that side, it comes up fairly straight and matches up almost exactly with the ear attachment on the side of her face. So let's come down here. We've got it on the points in our photograph we want. That little smile line there. I think I'm going to start developing a nose. We can make as many little reference points as we want to, but I think it would be good for us to start getting an idea where that is. Now, I keep forgetting that my photograph is too wide to put on the inside of the paper, so we have to come out to the outside. Let's go to the bottom edge of that flared nostril, and because I have it matched up with that reference point on the edge of the ear, as long as I bring it up on the drawing to meet that, I will have the opportunity now to show this. Now it's longer and straighter, but at least we'll create kind of a boxing in. Let's see if we can find something from that bottom reference point on the chin, and we'll come up with a little more information on how wide the nose is on that side. Let's get a little more information. Let's go on the other side of the nose. We're running it through that bottom reference point on the chin, and we have got our edge of the nose. Now let's find out how far over the inside of the nostril is, how far over it comes here. So let's put it on that chin major reference point. Now let's do the other one. On this one, you may be able to see that there's kind of an angle. It looks like there's almost a little point here. So let's go to that from that chin reference point. Whenever I can, it's good to work off of the same point so that we're not multiplying problems if we happen to get off somewhere else. And okay, there's that little tick. Let's see if we can develop that nostril just a little bit, keeping this thing parallel. Look, I even have the opportunity to run this line all the way through. Now it turns down there. Let's capture that angle. And now this was intended to be the bottom of the nostril. So let's go ahead and continue that up. And let's kind of get rid of the length on that. Let's go ahead and take away some of this bearing line now. So now let's go ahead and develop the nostril on the other side. Little curve at the end. What can we find now? Let's pick out something else. Let's go with the high point on these, on the curve of her upper lip. That should be easy enough. We can go from that bearing point in between the eyes down to where that intersects the lip. Let's go ahead and do the same over here. Try to pick out the obvious high point. Try to pick out something that you think you're going to be able to utilize and identify. Okay. So that means that this is where that is approximately. Okay. So now let's duplicate an angle on that. We can sight right down here and see that there's a little bit, or we could go ahead and measure it. Nothing wrong with that. But now let's just try this and see whether this works. Now it comes back down to this point. Now it comes back up and over. Probably you can start seeing how this has some principles like a grid, because you start having the opportunity to draw in between intersections and reference points. Alright, let's find the bottom. Let's find out where the bottom lip intersects now. We'll take this outer edge of the ear. This seems to be one of my favorite places on this picture, to where the vertical line intersects the top edge of the bottom lip. And this is where that bottom lip intersects. Let's go ahead and get a line that gives us a little bit of a start on that. Let's see here. Boy, we probably take a chance and just start developing this. And the reason, again, that I want to make sure that my lines are very light and not pressed into the paper is because even at this, I'm going to want to change some things. I want to be able to make all of the alterations that I want to. I don't want to have a bunch of score marks and dark lines dictating to me. Now also, now you can start seeing, look at this, you can see the little lip curve up. And it's not symmetrical, it's a little higher over here from these 2 points than it is there. It's not totally symmetrical in its arc. And so that gives me a chance to, I already have a line there, but that gives me a chance to kind of mimic that a little bit. Okay, and the same thing on the other side. Let's identify that a little here too. I'm going to take this point and this point, run the straight edge, and see how much it bows up. And again, it's not quite symmetrical between this point and this point. It's a little higher to the left. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Very thin little baby lips. Okay. Let's get this up here where I can see it and try and mimic the angle, making sure this is in the same orientation. It's quite a bit easier. Let's take out that flat part underneath. Let's see where this intersects the bottom lip. Make our little mark here. Now we know where the bottom lip intersects that. I don't want to draw dark anyway, but I certainly don't want to create a dark outline to an edge of a lip. So I want to be very careful that I don't get carried away. This is one of the very soft places on the face, is the edges of lips. We treat it just like we do contours and edges of shadows. They are soft. It's coming along. Can you see her little face starting to pop out here? Let's go ahead and establish where this garment comes out from the side of the face. If I can start working down a ways from some of that, I think we'll give ourselves some more reference point opportunities here, farther down on the face. So I have this thing in the same orientation, and I'm going to just create a line here that's a little more curved. It isn't straight. It's a little more curved that I can take advantage of drawing and intersecting that line for that garment. Let's use where the right ear joins the face at the lobe over to the garment, and that where the ear attaches to the face is our bearing point, and now we can intersect this line and know that that's where the garment comes out. Let's find out where the opposing one is on the other side. Well, this is what I'm trying to find right here, and we could find the edge of the garment. You can barely see it, and maybe the upper part that goes over the shoulder. Let's go from where the lobe attaches on the left side. Use that as our bearing point. Let's go ahead and do that top dimension of that garment going around behind her neck. Still using our pivot point, our fulcrum point over there on the earlobe. I'm looking at this that I'm going to capture right there. So we'll line up that earlobe and this. So now we're going to intersect this for the side of the face there. And let's go ahead and go to the outer edge of the ear to where that meets the cheek. And it's right there. Let's find out where these inner parts of the ear are. Let's go back over here to that bottom of the lobe on the right ear, back over to where we think that inside of the ear starts. And let's intersect that line. Let's go to the top. Here we have it there. Let's find out where this is. Now that we have a couple more reference areas, like the garment going in the side. Okay, let's find out where the points of those eyes are here. How far out that is. Let's use our bearing point here. Bearing point on the chin. And let's find that tear duct corner of the eye, inner eye. If we get that on there, we'll know exactly where to intersect that to find the corner. Okay, let's go ahead and do the other one. Now we'll be able to find out where that corner is. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and go out to our standby point out here on the edge of the ear. And now we're going to find out where the corner of the eye intersects that line we just put in. There's our corner. Let's go ahead and do the same thing the other way. Let's go on the far right ear, that outer edge, and come to the corner of the eye and see where we need to intersect the line we put there. There we go. Now we can come back in here and we can keep this parallel and try to mimic at least the start of that angle. with this one. Looks like it's fairly level. We'll verify some of those things later. Okay, the inner edge of the bottom lid. We'll use our standby outer edge of the ear. That's just been some good reference points there. It's far enough out that we can get a good angle on things. Gives us a little better consistency. And now we're going to make a straighter than we will end up with line to represent where this is closest here. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Let's do that far right reference point again and go to the top edge of the bottom lid. Okay, pretty close. Let's decide where the center of that pupil is. Let's go again with our faithful chin reference point. Some of you will say, well, okay, I haven't had a chance to draw yet. But one of the nice things about this is I will be able to nail quite close the facial features and characteristics. Let's go through our reference point in the chin again. I'm going to find out where the iris touches or intersects with that upper eyelid. Now let's go ahead and figure out where it intersects the bottom eyelid. Move it back onto our faithful chin reference. And now we're going to put a line here. That is where that is. Well, let's go ahead and get the other side. Then we get back to the eye demo. And we can go ahead and construct our eyes with some guidelines on how big and where to start. And we're off to the races again. This is where that intersects. Let's go ahead and create the top one. We might as well. To the chin reference point, and where it intersects up there will be here. So let's catch the other eye. Then we can work on both the eyes for just a little bit. Then I think we're about ready to start using our divider. I think we have enough reference points we can really put that into use, because I have a real important recipe I want to share with you on that. Go with our chin reference point again, keeping it parallel at the bottom. Wow, that's surprising it's over that far, but it looks like it is. And so now let's get the other side, running it past that reference on the chin. Okay. Let's find the center of that pupil on that line. We're using our chin reference again. This mark, lining it up with that one. That's the center of our pupil. Let's find out how high this is. We go out to the outer edge of the right ear, up to the inner edge of the eyelid. Okay. So, okay, here's the top edge of our eye. Let's try and duplicate this angle. Remember, what do we have to have? What's the recipe for our eyes that are looking at us? The iris always has to be round. So we don't know. You might have to go ahead and make a round circle just to make sure what's here would be part of a full radius. Let's go ahead now and take an opportunity to draw in a couple things here and go dot to dot. Because I can compare the angles. And I think that this should start putting the ability to do somebody's portrait, even though it could cost you some work. It's still very rewarding. And this starts putting it within the reach of everybody. If you have a straight edge, a pencil, paper, and hopefully the divider, You'll see how well the divider works in just a moment. And I don't know whether you remember or not, but I like to just use a bunch of lines. I don't want to make, even though this may look very exacting, an edge, I still say that it's much easier and more effective in almost every case to leave the edges soft and not cutting edge. I don't want you to draw a circle and fill it in. And this helps us kind of move. I want to crisscross and whatever, which naturally creates that soft edge. Kind of like a very, very complex asterisk. We just keep adding asterisks on top of asterisks at different angles, and we'll end up with this softness. And let's get a feel for this one over here. Okay, let's find out where the top of that eye is. So this goes back here like this. This is the top of the eye, the inner top of the eye. I think we could stand a little bit more information on the lips. And then could go ahead and freehand a couple things in here probably, because we know where this line intersects this. So we've already established that, and now I just want to duplicate a little bit that angle. Let's see what we can do on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and decide give myself a little bit of an idea of where the fold in the eyelid is. Yeah, let's go out to that outer edge again. So now that's the high point. Then it tapers back quickly to the eye, so we need to change where the arc is on that, I guess. Probably should take another reading on this. Let's go to the other eye and find out where the eyelid fold is for that one. Go to the outer edge of the ear again and make this line. So there's going to be a lot of lines that we're going to have to keep removing. And it's a good thing we're putting them down very lightly. Let's go ahead and find out where this garment comes up by using where this side of the face intersects that horizontal line. Let's do that. We now know where our garment intersects that. So let's go ahead and give that a little character. Now this tilts back. I think there's enough of a straight area right in here that we can get at least the attitude, the direction it's going. And let's do that. From that where it intersects our little shoulder going in there. where is this intersection? Let's get some of these. These are probably good key places to look for. If we want to know exactly where that V is, we just have to come from two different directions to that point, and we'll know exactly where it is. But here, let's go ahead and intersect it from the side of the face again, where that horizontal line goes through the side of the face. Now let's start around to take advantage of my flow and gray stroke, keeping this thing parallel, and I can mimic at least a starting place for this arc. We can go ahead and go from that little place to where it meets by placing. Now we're not going to use the reference points. We're just going to put this on that edge. So we'll go a little farther than we need. Let's go from our original center reference point down to that intersection here where that one part of the garment goes behind the other. Now let's go ahead and find out about this, and now we can hook it up with that little tick mark I put on that. So let's find out where that is. Where does that intersect that line I just put? We're going to line it up with that bearing point there in the middle of between the eyes. And now let's match up this. I'm going to get rid of a couple points here. We're at the place where we can start eliminating a few of these. Things that ran past. All right, let's go back to the reference point that we enjoy using, that outer edge of the ear. And now let's go ahead and capture the inner part of this ear over here. And then let's go ahead and do this one as well, where we want it here. There we go. So let's go ahead now and just make an indicator. It'll just help keep boxing this in and shaping it up. Let's find out where this reference point is now. Let's start just dividing up this shoulder a little bit, just so we can start getting some of the things that we might want to use out here. Let's go ahead and go out to that little corner on the shoulder. I'm trying to pick out probably a lot more reference points, because I just want to really let you understand you can do whatever you want out here. You can get as many or as little. Okay, let's go ahead and go out to the outer edge of the shoulder. But you can make as many marks as you want or as few. Let's see what this straight part of the shoulder matches up with. See if it matches. Oh, it's real close to this far edge of the ear again. Now let's see if we can kind of mimic this a little bit. Indentation there, little curve here, a little back down there, and a little back up here. We never found the top of the ears. That's amazing. Let's go ahead and go out to the outer edge of the ear again on the right hand side and catch the top of the left ear. And now let's come over to the other side. Bring it up to this reference point again on the left side of the ear, and we'll get a mark here for the ear. Let's box in this nose a little bit, find out where we need to intersect this line. And we'll come down to this point in our little outfit and line it up along this edge of the nose here. Let's see how our divider works. Now let me show you this recipe. I'm sure we have enough on here that we can do some interesting things. When I want to find something, and let's just go ahead and pick how far out am I going to come to find this cheek. I want to go back to one of my reference points or something I can count on, and I want to go to my source, and I want to say, okay, let's go to that corner on the inside of the mouth. Let's just say to the cheek, to the jawline. And now I'm going to keep that just like that, and I'm going to try and find something that's equivalent. Let's go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to spread this out because we're working on a different ratio out here. And now all I need to do is put it on that and make my tick mark. And now I know how far out the cheek is at that point. Now I could come all the way along, and I could continue trying to find another place and another place and another place. So I know exactly where the curve is. But I think I have enough, probably, to do a pretty nice job. Let's try and establish the other side. So I'm going to go to my reference. Let's establish that. See if we can find something that matches up. Oh my, there right away. This thing in the right orientation and see if I can get this angle right. And we have that. And we could find out where that intersects that line if we want. Let's go back to this part where the garment intersects the chin. Let's go to that. And you notice how this is fairly straight in here, so it matches up with that line pretty well. And now I get to come over here. That was pretty close. Now we see this little wrinkle in her little neck. It kind of comes up about to here. Let's go to the bottom of the ear. It could be several places, but let's just choose that. Remember, I want to keep changing my picture around, be in the same positioning. Now let's find out where this point is. So I'm taking it up to that chin reference point. And this is where it intersects. So this isn't so critical, but I still want you to just get used to seeing and duplicating. Okay, let's come out here for the ear a little bit here. Mimicking this angle. Making sure that we're coming out this way far enough. And let's get that ear boxed in a little bit, at least a starting point. This bows out a little bit from that, so we'll do that. And it looks like maybe this angle's in just a little more. There's a little fold in the neck. I could verify that if I want, but now we're getting down to places that I can probably ad-lib a little bit and just get the form and the structure here, because then we'll start adding some life to it later. Let's see, let's add a little curve here, bow out a little bit there, come in here and dip down a little bit there so we don't have all these straight lines. And this is kind of a little fold in here, a little gathering. And this goes back like so. Okay. Let's find some eyebrows on this little child. Using our faithful reference point on the edge of the ear. Okay, let's go ahead and just box this in. There's going to be that angle, but that's at least part of it. Now let's come over here. This is fairly straight across the top here. As you look at this, I think we could kind of get an idea about that. Let's find how long this eyebrow is. Where does it come to the temple there? So let's go ahead and go with something we're pretty sure about. Putting it on that reference point there. Let's make a little tick there. Let's go from the corner of the inside of the mouth to about where the eyebrow is. Let's go to that outer edge of the right ear. Okay, let's go ahead and form these ears. See if we have something on here that we can use with the divider. There's something wrong here. height of that other line is not, it can't be right. And these are things you want to know too, because you want to be able to find the things that are wrong as well as mark what's right. I'm going to go to the outside of that ear again and go up to the top. Oh yes, this is way off. See if we can make that work. Let's go ahead and find out how far out those eyebrows are. See if we can tell. Let's find something as a reference point here. Let's go to where the iris meets the eyelid. I think I'd like to find out if we have anything that tells us where the edge of the hair is now, where that intersects the vertical line. Let's see if we have something that's like that. I went to what I want to find up here, and I went to find an equivalent. Now I already have the equivalent, so I'm going to go to that bottom of the earlobe to where the little shoulder meets the garment, and now I'm going to go to that earlobe, and I'm going to come up here to where it intersects the vertical line, and now I know where that tick mark is, and guess what I get to do? I need to find, or I can find, the general direction of the hair based on that tick mark. Let's find out generally where the top of her head is. This is going to be more nebulous, so let's just see if there's something similar to, well, let's go to the lip. It's probably more defined. Well, no, we can do this. We don't have to go that far. This is a little undefined up here, but it'll at least give us a little bit of an idea. Let's see what we can find here. The edge of the iris to the inside edge of that. Let's come up here and establish the edge of the hair. I can see the direction. This is kind of what I want to do to, let's see if I move that. No, I got too high up there. I don't want to get too high. There's nothing like making the head bigger. Let's get the idea over here. Remember, we want to go to what we want to find. Going to the bottom earlobe, out to that outer edge of the hair. Then I found out that this is very similar where we put that hair mark. The hairline mark. So we're going to go down to there, and we're going to find this. Okay, let's get the other side. Let's find the width of the hair and the width of the head where the hair is here. Let's get a little better handle on that. Now what else can I find that's the same on that? Oh my. Boy, this reference point on this ear has sure been great. But you'll find those kind of things on every picture. Now we know where that is. Let's come on up here and get that angle on here. A little bit of a tilt. I want to know that. I don't want to go straight up if it shouldn't be straight up. Let's find out where that natural kind of a part is. Let's do it in relationship to her iris. And her part is somewhere up in here. Don't have to get too carried away. Remember, I just want the slightest indicator so that when I come in with my 2B, and I will use my 2B up here. Remember, our hair pencil is the 2B. To give myself some extra lead, this is going to be just in a guideline so that I can know where to put that 2B. Let's find out how far her bangs come down. Her little bangs over here on that side. Let's go to the earlobe and just get a general idea where that starts. I really want a slight indication there because I don't want to have this opposing line on the end of my bangs. It's just a little wisp up there, but just wanted to know generally how long to make them. In fact, now that we have that up there, let's take this out a little bit. We don't want anything opposing those nice little ends. Let's establish a temple. Okay, let's go ahead and find that reference point for the temple. And so here we go. And let's go ahead and do that. Just to get a little indicator of how far in the hairline comes. Little wispy stuff, we're just going to want to be very careful we don't get too carried away with that. It has to be just soft, that soft little baby hair. She's starting to come together. Okay, let's go ahead and ad lib here a little bit. I'm going to take a couple liberties just to get this in here. This is down the middle and over that way, just to get a little indication here. We already have that. We haven't utilized yet, so that can come down here. Still kind of boxing things in, but I still have some of these reference lines in here. I'm going to start removing my lines, but I want to catch little things like this. I want you to capture all these little target areas for highlights. If we need to know where they are, well, we can measure them. If we're not sure, when I'm looking right straight down here, and I'm going to come out to the edge, and I'm using this as reference. So after a while, you don't necessarily have to measure everything out, but there's nothing wrong with that either. Let's just make this very light so we know where the general areas are for. Here's the temple, then here's the hairline coming back here. Get some of these contours mapped out here, and that's basically now what I'm going to be doing is I'm creating a map. I'm taking the opportunity to just draw and start connecting the dots. Make sure I'm catching some of these little things. I could measure this, but probably do okay blocking it in here. Looks like this kind of a V. I'll try and find shapes about in the center of that. Start imagining shapes. I remember a lady that came into school when I was in grade school, and she told us to look for shapes as we're drawing, and I've never forgotten that, and it has come in so handy. And most of us have imagined things. My grandmother was instrumental in taking me outside, and we'd have a time where we just imagined what shape clouds were, maybe the plaster texture was on the ceiling, and we could imagine all kinds of shapes in there. I know a lot of you have done things like that when you're children or mothers and helping your kids see things. Okay, and from the peak of this, we can come back in here and create this little area in here. I don't want to create too dark of a line because I'm going to want to have this be a very soft contour, and we'll be discussing all those things as we go through. So we start constructing the picture. Now I'm going to show you how the technique that I've been teaching you applies. I'm worried about this little nostril. It looks like this nostril. The opening on the right-hand side is not where it should be. Let's come up from our bearing point in between the eyes, intersect that place. Oh yes, look at that nostril. It's completely out of whack. I thought it was, visually I thought it was just too short. That's why it's so nice to have these tools that you can find those places, because I don't care how good you are, you're going to run into problems once in a while. You're going to lose your way. I don't care whether you're using a projector or a tracing light. It doesn't make any difference. You will still find that you're going to lose your way once in a while and have to get back on track. And it's so nice to have, a good method for finding out what the problem is, and maybe even reconstructing your picture a little bit. go ahead and start removing some of these lines. I made them darker so you all could see. I hope they come off adequately. And you'll see me rubbing a little bit because it's a little different than what I've been teaching you. I want to make sure these come off clean. So much of it might come off by the tapping, but I'm trying to be more specific and get just those places to start coming off. So this is a method that I started utilizing way back when I was a teenager because I just had this desire to make things as accurate as I could. I realized that I could make it any size I wanted, and it's so rewarding to really have captured the likeness. And then we're going to go ahead and finish doing a little sketching in here. It's just the more sketching I put on here before I take these lines off. When I try to remove the lines, I'm going to be removing my sketch. Get these backed off so they're not dictating to me how dark I'm going to go to get them to recede into the value I'm going to put up next to it. So I'm going to try, just like on the lid, to make sure it's just where I can see it. Now, again, love to draw freehand, and I hope that everybody that wants to out there will be able to improve in that area if that's what you want to do. But a freehand drawing becomes more of a caricature because you'll never get it absolutely accurate. You can get the essence of who that person is, capture main personalities, but it becomes more of a caricature. So now let me go ahead and connect the dots again so we can see this clearly. Now, when I start sketching, I can start giving these things a little more of a curve. Even though it's subtle, I still want to try and capture that because there's nothing straight, and your mind will register those things, those little contradictions. Looks like there's a little earlobe that is probably more there than we think. So I'm just going to indicate it so I can go ahead and remember to address it. To be drawing the hair, but I still want to get enough in here you can see it. Probably a tiny bit darker than I would go, but I want to be able to have you see all the form that we've created here. Remember, the general rule is just as light as you can and still see it. Okay, now let's go ahead and continue getting in some of these other contours and block in where we're going to have highlights, because I want to know where I'm going to bring values and fade away to a place. I want to know, I have a target area anyway. Now see, we could keep using the same process and find all of these places, so don't be frightened that all of a sudden I'm going off and I'm freehanding this stuff in here and you're left behind, because you can continue verifying everything you want. Get as much on there. If you need the direction, you go ahead and get it, because I want you to experience the next phase, which is making this into something. And you're going to see a tremendous transformation here in a little bit when we go to the next stage. One of of the exciting ones initially, and it's fun to see things happen that really make it exciting and worthwhile. I'm just trying to make sure I have all my lines, and I'll even clean this up and simplify it again. I want to make sure that I know where everything is going. And every time I'm doing something like this, I'm seeing what I line it up with. If it isn't directly lined up with this, straight up from this nostril, then I'm going to look and see how much it is, and I'm going to shift it over. I'm going to look at it in relationship to the eye and realize that, hey, it's probably right in here. Got carried away after saying all that. I better go ahead and do what I was telling you. Move my paper. Making sure that I'm taking advantage of my best stroke. And I can see the angles better. So there's two wonderful advantages to this. Keep teaching yourself to notice those angles and take advantage of them. I'm looking at how this is in relationship to the, this area. I'm above that, and I wonder how far I'm going to come, so I'm automatically looking at how it is in relationship to the iris, and then where does it come back, and there's some connecting areas here, and then there's something back here with a different level of value, and yet I probably ought to, and I could do this with a straight edge too, I can come out here. Looks like she has, I don't know whether that's on the picture or not, never mind. Thought maybe if there's a mole or something like that that's really gives that person their identity, then it's probably good to make sure you include those things. Just show you how not to make it so evident that it becomes something else. Almost there, almost ready to start putting in, well, I'll clean it up first, but I'm almost ready to start putting in our first values. What pencil am I going to use? We're going to start with the 4H. That is almost a foregone conclusion. I want to make sure that you understand that unless there's an exception, which I'll try to tell you what I think some of my exceptions are, stay away from that 4B pencil and don't draw with it, and start with a 4H instead. Some people want to go to that dark one every time they come across something that's dark, and I really strongly suggest you don't do that. And the other thing that happens here that easily influences you when you're drawing is the fact that because there's no contour, actually this picture to me looks wider. And it will narrow up and refine as soon as I have a chance to start contouring it. Because the baby's face is, the front of the face is not this wide, but right now because it's flat, it does look like that's the front of the face. The front of the face is actually, more probably here. And then this recedes back. It turns the corner and goes back to there. And if you're not careful, you'll end up by compensating for what you think you're seeing instead of having faith in what you've got down here. And I strongly suggest that you believe in your lines because they're probably pretty accurate. It's not that you're not going to find something, but you'll want to do something. You'll probably want to correct something down the line after you have a chance to get a true sense of what it is. Unless there's something obviously wrong, it can't happen, but trying to get maybe this, there's a kind of a dividing line between this a little bit lighter as it starts turning the corner. I want to kind of indicate to myself, just to give myself a little bit of a guide, where that is. And then anything I think, very, very lightly, anything I think will help me as I start seeing the contours of the face. Starting to see this develop. I hope it does give you some great opportunities, and I'm so excited about what I'm going to be able to show you here in a little bit. We're almost to that place. Looking for any slight indicators of contour. I like to give myself all kinds of information. I still want to make sure it's very light because I certainly don't want to have those sketching lines show through, but I'm going to make sure that I put enough value that hopefully I'm going to absorb them. It's going to be so much fun seeing what many of you are going to do out there. I anticipate we'll be able to see some of your finished pictures or what you've done as a result of the lessons, and that'll be so much fun. Okay, you notice I haven't filled in places. I'm tried not to anyway. I don't want to start putting values in until I get this cleaned up, and then that's going to be the next big stage. We'll start creating our clean edges to value, our dimensional edges, and we'll start applying that 4H pencil. That 4H pencil is a wonderful pencil if you use it right. It can really damage your picture if you're not careful. But trying to eliminate it is just not a good idea. If you're going to use my technique here. Okay, I'll go ahead and finish cleaning this up. Making sure that I've thinned down some of these lines so we can get them right a lot closer to, oh, and something else I'm not doing. Shame on me. Now that I'm going to start doing some of these other things, I want to put my paper up here so we don't accumulate stuff and start smearing our picture. Okay, well, I think we're ready.